BD to Zed Victor 1.
Quite as us.
Back in the early 60s, with only a couple of channels, something like Zcars would have been watched by most people in the country. Everyone would sit down, same time, same place, and watch Zcars every week.
Zed Victor 2 for BD.
We were as famous as the Beatles. We were.
BD to Zed Victor 1.
Zed Victor 1.
It was fresh and new and had an energy that television hadn't had up to that point.
Zed Victor 2.
Come in, please, Zed Victor 2.
Zcars was instantly on everybody's lips.
1962. Newspaper headlines scream of the tragic and unexpected death of a policeman.
Sergeant Twentyman is dead. No adverts, no politics, no nothing. Sergeant Twentyman is dead. The nation was in mourning.
But Sergeant Twentyman was not struck down by a villain on the beat.
Well, if it isn't my old friend Sergeant Twentyman.
He was a character in a police drama. Actor Leonard Williams had died of natural causes, but 14 million viewers felt the loss. Sergeant Twentyman had been more than a policeman. He had been in the phenomenon known as Zcars. First screened in January 1962, Zcars ran for 16 years. It told new stories of policing in an entirely new way. Britain in 1961 was on the verge of a cultural revolution. In music, art, fashion and design, new thinking was sweeping the country. Post-war education reforms had encouraged a wave of working-class talent through university. A wave that crashed into the walls of established institutions, like the BBC. It was a hive of radical thinking.
They came out confident, well-educated, and looking for a fight, as it were.
The 60s saw more social mobility and people from different backgrounds, different parts of the country suddenly moving into influential areas in the media, and therefore, not just in TV, but in advertising, in music, in films, in all the other kind of creative industries, you started to get a greater emphasis on authenticity, reality, holding a mirror up to the realities of society.
Writer Troy Kennedy Martin was part of that new generation at the BBC. A free-thinking script editor who wanted to change everything.
There was a kind of vehement scene about naturalism, about what made television, why was it different from the stage. And there was also an older generation who were kind of really stagey and theatrical and had come all the way from the 30s, and they had imposed this sort of way of really shooting theatre. They thought of it as theatre and they shot it as theatre.
And on one, as the flag comes down, that's it and fade out.
And then we had these young, including myself, people around who weren't into film, but we thought that somehow we could create a kind of cross between film. We could make our own film.
Drama was made another way at the BBC. In the shadow of the stuffy drama department stood the high-concept, high-principle documentary drama unit, run by Welshman Elwyn Jones. It was a magnet for new talent like Troy Kennedy Martin, the socialist theatre director John McGrath, and producer David Rose.
It wasn't the run-of-the-mill romantic stories and translations of theatre plays and this, that and the other. It was something closer to life in terms of our subjects for work generally. And the writers did very, very rigorous and thorough research.
No music, no fades, nothing that would suggest that this was drama. And the end credits the credits would always be at the end, and there would be no cast list in the Radio Times. It was this trick on the audience.
It was not about actors. Frequently the audience phoned up afterwards and said, we thought that was completely real, and we were very surprised to see cast list.
Writer Troy Kennedy Martin was at home there. But at the moment he was struck with the idea for Britain's most influential police drama, he was less happy.
I had mumps and I was lying in bed and I was pouring liquid chrome over my testicles, which grow to extremely large, and it was nothing to do, so I was One of the things I did was to monitor the police radios.
Hello, Zed Victor 2 to BD.
He heard the voices of young policemen dealing not with grand crimes, but with everyday incidents.
And I thought at that time, since we only had Dixon of Dr. Green, who was a father figure, what would it be like if you just got some young people in their cars going out and doing things and confronting very small problems, not sort of bank robberies or anything like that, and certainly not murders.
London police radios were the inspiration for Z-cars, but Elwyn Jones had a working relationship with the Lancashire Force and sent Troy Kennedy Martin to inspect the helpful burly boys in blue up north.
They were all very big, and they had that sort of confidence of a big kind of man, and they just took the piss out of me all the time. But they also had drivers, so they could all drive around and have drinks from time to time. They'd knock up inns or bars about 2 a.m, get the landlord down. They would never go home. So I got some great yarns off them and a great feeling for Lancashire.
The policeman he found hadn't been seen on television before, so he wrote Z-cars about 2 crime cars, unmarked fast response vehicles with hand-picked crews who were human and had problems of their own. PC Bert Lynch, played by James Ellis, was an Irishman with a thing about gambling.
Look, Sergeant, quit courting, will you? Look, it was 7 and 6 on the nose November, lady. I've got evidence.
He's not a copper, he's a con man. We were already policemen, of course, but we were on the beat and we were being selected for this elite job of driving the crime patrol car. In other words, the Z car.
Lynch was partnered in Z Victor 2 by PC Bob Steele, played by Jeremy Kemp, a good cop with a turbulent home life.
Is this the stay in the hot pot, mate?
What do you know about that hot pot?
Well, I don't know. It looks to me the sort of stay in a hot pot would make if it was thrown by an angry wife.
Well, look up Broken Chair, where a very frightened husband threw himself to avoid being blinded for life.
Ah, now you shouldn't hit her, Bob. Beat her with love if you must, but don't hit her.
Oh, it was an accident.
Z Victor 1 was crewed by PC Fancy Smith, the dandy hardman, played by Brian Blessed, and rugby star Jock Weir, played by Joseph Brady.
We were certainly Jack the lads, and we also had this tremendous independence. When we were in that big car, the car itself was one of the stars of the show. People still remember that it was a Ford Zephyr. And when we were in that world, we were in a world of our own. Nobody to give us orders, no bosses, no sergeants looking over our shoulder. So it was you and your partner patrolling the high roads of Lancashire.
I'll go.
Z Victor 2? Z Victor 2, return to your patrol area.
Oh, try again, love, I'm busy.
The chemistry of the initial cast was wonderful. It came from John McGrath's casting, hand in hand with Troy and myself and Robert Barr, and it just worked.
But why did these 4 guys spark off? I mean, as soon as we met in rehearsals or anything, it was very competitive, but very good-natured and competitive.
Shut up a bit, Lee. Let's think about how they're going to catch more thieves than Z Victor 2 before the end of the month.
Who cares about that?
Well, they care in the office.
Yeah, they care, all right. They give them all the good jobs and us all the rubbish.
For the first time, the police were written with a documentary realism the audience and young actors could identify with.
Come on, Joe.
But the production team had another innovation. This wasn't theatre. It wasn't film. It was something new.
The cop shows that were on when Z-Car started were either the very soft ones like Dixon or Doc Green or American police thrillers, Highway Patrol, etc. Now, they came out of Hollywood, and they came out of film technique. The plays we were doing in television largely came out of theatre technique. Z-Cars was something new. I mean, Z-Cars was television, and nobody had actually done it this way before.
The cutting-edge technique they developed saw the drama transmitted live from a single studio with all the interior sets. Actors performed live with the action cut between cameras as it happened, while 14 million viewers watched at home. It was intensely stressful. The only relief, short pre-made film sequences shot on location and played in.
The opening episode is still in my memory as the most exciting, like a first night in the theatre. It had a tremendous buzz in the studio, and it was live television.
Run telecine.
So you did a 50-minute take. You had pauses while the bits of film were played in. So the floor manager in the studio is keeping a very careful watch on everything and would suddenly announce, on film, 15 seconds.
14, television index, on television.
We had such fantastic vision mixers. This team of women knitters, I mean, they were knitting away and punching up fantastic they were.